What's up, YouTube? Today we are carrying on with the collaboration with Pete Callard from Shpongle. So in this episode, I want to go through how I'm creating some of the layers and how I'm adding some more kind of sounds and processing to the track. And I also want to go through creating a B section. So yeah, let's dive in and have a look. Okay, I want to check out some of the sort of simple layered things that I've kind of added in here that I want to render down just to kind of like dumb down on the amount of CPU usage that the project is hitting. As you can see, it's pretty obscene over here. Here we've got like a really traditional dub delay snare drum. So what this is just a snare sample. I've loaded up the Viktorija delay 201 over here. And the thing about this though is I've kind of overdrived the feedback. So every so often I've got to kind of jump in there and hit that panic button just so it doesn't like never endingly kind of like feedback into distortion mode. And I've also got a spring reverb on here, and that also helps to kind of accentuate that kind of like dubby sound. So anyway, I rendered that out just to kind of like cut that tail because that delay ends up getting a little bit chaotic, but this is essentially what it sounds like without any of this processing. And then with the delay and reverb. So like I said, because that kind of keeps going forever, I had to render that out and just use a sample of that. And I find it's a little bit kind of cleaner to do this anyway, because sometimes these like analog emulated things sometimes have like a bit of noise and that kind of thing. So anyway, let me remove that track because I don't need it anymore. We've got the kind of sampled version of that looking good. So the next thing we can have a look at is the hi-hats. This is just a very simple kind of hi-hat pattern that I made using the Spitfire Labs, just using some open and closed hi-hat sounds from there. The reason I did this instead of samples is because it's just like a quick and easy way of getting these hi-hat sounds that sound like cohesive, that sound like it's all one hi-hat opening and closing, and finding samples that all kind of fit like that is a little bit tricky. So there's no special processing happening here. So there's no special processing happening there, just some EQ and that kind of thing. So I'm just going to render that out just to save some CPU usage, and we can move on to some other things in the track. Okay, another thing I want to show you guys is how I created this kind of like breakbeaty kind of drum pattern. So I've got a group channel here, and a couple of the percussion channels are sending to this group. So I think it's the hi-hats, some of the tablers, the rim shots, and that kind of stuff. A couple of those are sending to the group, or it's actually an effects channel, like a send effects channel. And then on this channel, I've got the Chris Glitch plugin. So what this is basically like a probabilistic retrigger. So you send audio in and it decides probabilistically how it's going to kind of retrigger it, and you've got various kind of timing settings that you can use. So when I'm using this as a kind of send effect, it's important to set this here to block so that the audio doesn't pass through when the plugin is actually not engaged, so that you don't kind of get that kind of double up of audio because it's a send channel, if you guys are following. So what this does is it basically randomly glitches some of the drum patterns, and why I want to render this out is it's a little bit too random. So I want to render out a whole bunch of it and cherry pick some of these cool like rhythmical glitchy patterns that it creates. But let me quickly show you just an example of what this plugin is actually doing. So right now we're hearing the dry signal as well as the wet signal, but what we can do is we can actually add an audio track. I'm just going to add it up here. Let's just set the inputs of this to drum breaks, which is that send effects channel which I made. I'm going to call this drum breaks render. And then what we can do is we can actually just make sure this record arm is on, and then just let it record out a whole huge sequence, and then we're going to cherry pick the best parts. Cool, so this is what the wet effect of that like effects rack sounds like. So now the trick is to listen through it and cherry pick the best parts, delete parts that you don't like. It's also cool to kind of see how they fit with the rhythm of, what the dry drums sound like. So you can kind of unsolo it, listen to it, cherry pick, etc. So that's what I'm going to do. See you guys shortly. Cool. Then this is the cherry picked version that I've kind of sequenced to fit alongside this beat. So I've also got a bunch of layers that I've put in here from Falcon. So what I've been doing is kind of creating this multi within Falcon. Quite a few of the sounds are from a new bank that I've just got. I'm probably going to do a video on that as well. But let me just see if I can jump back here. So quite a few of the sounds are from the UVI Orchestral Suite, and then the other sounds, as you guys know, one of my other favorites is the UVI World Suite 2. So I kind of tried to combine this like sort of Middle Eastern vibe alongside this kind of like orchestral kind of vibe that kind of like slowly builds to create this tension in the track. So as you can see, there's quite a few parts here. I'm going to try slowly render these out and process them and fit them into the track. So the most important parts for this kind of part that I'm showing you guys at the moment is these kind of gongs that kind of signify almost like a crash sound at the beginning of the bar. And then I've layered them together to create like a bigger sound. And then there's also these crow tails. I found those had a particular kind of like Shpongle vibe to them that I really, really liked, and I felt that could like really fit into this track. And then some chords over here, again from the UVI Orchestral Suite. I believe this is the all strings ensemble doing these chords. So yeah, usually, I mean, I find the easiest way to do this, to start rendering these out, is to actually send Falcon to a record group and then actually record them out live rather than rendering one by one and waiting for it. You can kind of do it real time by using the record group method. So I'm going to add a group channel to Falcon. Let's just call this record group, and then we can go over here. Let's add an audio track. Let's say input we can call from record group, and then let's call this one crowtails. We'll first do those kind of like bell sounds. Now we can solo it and then record that in. Cool. So I put some reverb on that gong sound, quite a big reverb. I'll probably put reverb on the other stuff as well, but it's just like more pronounced on that one, so I figured I would mention it here. There's also a couple of other stuff within this part, but it comes on kind of later on within the track. It's this kind of oud/bazooki type sound, as well as these taikos and a couple of other things, but I think these are the kind of like main elements in that section that I kind of want to show you guys. So this uses the MIDI pattern that I stole from that guitar riff that Pete created. And this actually uses 3 layers, a bazooki, baglamas, and a oud. As you can see, they panned left, right, and center. And then I've got some kind of, these are all being triggered by the same MIDI pattern. And then I've got some randomization happening on velocities. And that basically gives it that kind of like sound that sounds like it's 3 different people playing the exact same thing. I think there's a little bit of randomization happening on the timing as well, just to kind of accentuate that a little bit more. So yeah, let's render these parts out. Like I said, I'm probably only going to start introducing these a little bit later on in the track, but I'm not going to focus too much on arrangement at this point. I kind of want to get all the stuff in there, and we can kind of create a slightly more organic arrangement as we go. There's also this really cool like orchestral stab sound, which I found is one of the instruments. Let me just see if I can put it up here. One of the instruments in the UVI orchestral suite. I think it's this one, Complete Orc. It's a nice stabby sound. So I think this, with some reverb and stuff, can really like add to the layer and, you know, intensity of certain parts of the track. So I'm just going to render out a little stab of this, and we can use it later or not. We'll see what happens. There's also this instrument, Duduk, from the UVI World Suite. Really nice kind of like wind instrument that adds this kind of really nice Eastern sound. I added some of this in here. I also want to just render it out so we can use it later on in the track if we want to, while we're kind of arranging it, adding in the layers and stuff. So for now, that's about as far as I've got. I just figured I wanted to show you guys that we've kind of developed two distinct parts here. The one with that kind of like key change in the bass, and then this one which we've developed today, which is kind of more of a flatter, more progressive kind of feel. It's kind of like flatter, and it allows for more kind of experimentation over the top. So I'm still kind of thinking, how are we going to arrange these parts? I think the flatter part is going to allow for more kind of introduction of like weird synths and things over time, which I will cover obviously in future videos and that kind of thing. But I figured I just want to show you, you know, how I've kind of, you know, where we're sitting so far. I feel like the transition from the flat part to the moving part is, I can't quite get it there. I think we need to do some kind of like transition or some kind of key change in between. But I feel like the part that goes from this to this kind of flows quite smoothly. Or I've actually created a bit of a break in between, so I guess it's cheating. But I feel like those parts flow, but the other way around doesn't quite flow. So I still want to kind of develop that part a little bit further. But yeah, this is where we're sitting at so far. So just as a quick reference, like what I'm talking about with this section being kind of more open to experimentation with like adding synths and that kind of thing, I just, you know, slapped in, I think this is from, yeah, LD Amoeba. This is from my Glitch Psytrance Essentials Volume 1 Vital preset pack. I just added this MIDI to that preset, and it already sounds pretty awesome. Awesome. I hope you guys enjoyed that. Let me know what you think in the comments. I'm going to be posting a link to where you can check out Pete's channel and all the details to his stuff in the description. So definitely head on over to his channel and go check him out. For those who haven't yet, please consider supporting this channel by clicking that subscribe button, or if you want to do so, head on over to my Patreon and check out the different offers that I've got there for you. Otherwise, just hit that like button. See you guys next time. Cheers.